Sound check, 1, 2, 3. Sound check, 1, 2, 3. I'll be going live in a few minutes, couple minutes. Okay. All right, we're live. Welcome and good morning to this Sunday morning, Free Grace Community Church in Nicaragua. My name is Mike, and today we are looking at Revelation chapter 12 and possibly Revelation chapter 13, if we get to it. But before then, we're going to take a look at our current events playlist. I've added quite a few more videos to it since yesterday. So there's the first one here by the Dre dossier called "The Cloud is a Battlefield and You're Enlisted," where she goes over what these data centers that they're putting in, what are they really for, right? Because apparently the amount of power they're drawing is way more than what they would need if it was just for AI, right? So she's looking at how the military is using data centers that are in residential areas for their projects in the cloud, and so making people targets, because those are military targets if you're allowing the military to put stuff in data centers. So she goes over the evidence for that. Next, we have your phone is now required to spy on you. It's the law. So Loyal Moses, he's talking about how they just are passing laws about age verification, particularly the one in California, where every device has to have age verification. So they're legalizing spyware. This is just the tip of the iceberg here. They're just getting their foot in the door. Once they get this in, then they can easily expand it to other requirements, because right now they're just putting in the infrastructure that they're going to need later on to lock you down, because this is the main linchpin that they need to keep people off the internet if they don't have the mark of the beast. And that leads into my own video that I just posted last night called "Trump's 6G Directive Signals the Mark of the Beast is Coming." So in this video, I go over, there's an article that was posted a few days ago, going over the evidence, how Trump has put in the 6G directive, and it's for implantable technologies. So watch the video, you'll see there's a link to an article where you can see the evidence of that. So they're putting in age verification, they're putting in implantables. It's all going to come together into the mark of the beast, so that at some point you will not be able to access the internet unless you have the mark of the beast, or you find a way around this whole thing by like using open source Linux or something like that that can still get you on the internet. But you might be able to get on the internet, but you won't be able to get on YouTube. You won't be able to get on Discord. You won't be able to get on these big sites that are going to be implementing the same technology, to the identification technology that the mark of the beast will use. So that's my video. And there's another one by Sling and Stone that he posted 11 hours ago. Donald Trump, Mark of the Beast, End Times Bible Prophecy 2026. He talks about the same implantable technology, the same story. He's got a lot of clips, though, so there's some good clips that he's got to show what's going on. But he goes wrong in this video, because he's calling it, he's saying this isn't the mark of the beast, this is just a stepping stone to the mark of the beast. Well, I asked him, if an implantable chip that's easily implantable in your brain, if that's just a stepping stone to the mark of the beast, then what's the real mark of the beast? Are you going to take a chip in your head and say to yourself, this is just a stepping stone to the real thing? No, it is the real thing. At the point it becomes an implant in your head, in your forehead, it's the real thing. This whole thing about stepping stone to it, and then how Trump is like, he's not the Antichrist, he's paving the way for the Antichrist. Well, who else is going to come along that matches everything the Antichrist does other than Donald Trump? There's nobody else on the scene that matches everything. I think next week we're going to look at all the evidence behind Donald Trump being the actual Antichrist, because there's a lot of evidence to go over with that. So that'll take one whole week. So check out those videos and you'll see what's going on. What else do we have? On the Bible numerics front, Brandon Peterson posted this rebuttal to Grace Life Bible, they released a video series about Brandon Peterson's Bible numerics, trying to debunk it, right? So they're calling it numerology. They're trying to discount his numeric patterns. So he put together an entire written response to their entire series to answer it. So if you want to take a look, I'll post a link to this, and they have a full article here where he goes over it. This written response to Brian Ross and this other guy where they're doing a podcast. I guess it's last year sometime they did this podcast, and they're trying to say that Bible numerics is the same as occult numerology, which is not the same thing. It is not. And interesting thing about these guys, Grace Life Bible, apparently they're mid-acts dispensationalists, which means they take only the words of Paul as scripture. Everything else they basically ignore. They say only Paul is for us, so we only see what Paul had to say. So I question where they're getting this stuff from, or they're calling it numerology because of the seminary. That's my theory. They went to seminary, so they've been corrupted by seminary into knee-jerk reacting to anything that has numbers attached to it and calling it numerology, which is what they teach you in seminary. They say don't even go near to that, right? But it's not numerology. And then this here is their playlist where they're trying to debunk it and call it numerology. There's 7 videos there. They're quite long, and they have a couple of good points where they're saying, well, why not be consistent? Because sometimes we leave out the anti-mentions and sometimes we put them in. So be consistent in the searching. But other than that, like they did not come to a satisfying conclusion to actually debunk Brandon Peterson's theories. So his written response is here. It's quite long. If you want to read that, I'll put a link to it down below. Which we're going to do Sealed by the King. The next chapter. Might as well do that now because we're talking about Brandon Peterson. So note number 25. The Holy One plus Father plus Son plus Spirit, 777. So who is the Holy One? He is God, the Godhead. So he's doing searches on Father plus Son plus Spirit, and all capitalized, 777 appearances. Note though that this includes this concealed appearance of Son in the word song, which to me, I don't know if I would take that as evidence, because there's no other like searches where you're taking part of a word and saying that's a match. So I don't know about that. But if you take Holy plus Father plus Son plus Spirit plus Godhead, all capitalized with no concealed appearances, so that's a cleaner search, you get 777 verses. And if you search for Holy One plus Father plus Son plus Spirit, all capitalized, you get 777 mentions in the entire Bible. And then there's the next one here is Holy, capitalized, is mentioned 144 times. The 144th mention of the search, Holy One plus Father plus Son plus Spirit capitalized, is at Jesus's baptism, where all 3 are clearly listed. The Son being baptized, the Spirit descending on him like a dove, and the Father speaking from above. So 144 mentions. Out of 777 mentions is Son in Matthew 3:17. So when he's baptized. It's the 144th mention, right? So Matthew 3, 16 and 17. The 144th mention of the combined search is the Son with the Spirit lighting upon him and the Father speaking to him. They are all together in the same passage, the Holy One. And the word, or in the number, he doesn't go over this, but the number 144 is 12 times 12. And the number 12 has significance in the Bible, where 12 apostles, 12 tribes of Israel, and 144, we have also the 144,000 in Revelation chapter 7. So the 144th mention could have something to do with anointing people. So because Jesus was anointed at his baptism, right? So, and the 144,000 are sealed with the Father's seal in their forehead in Revelation chapter 7, the 144,000. So there could be some significance to that. That's why it's 144. Brandon didn't really explain that at all, but so that's the end of the 25th note. And next week we'll do number 26. We're still only about a quarter of a way through Sealed by the King. So if you want your own copy, go to sealedbytheking.com and you can have a free download of the PDF there. Or you can order the paperback from Amazon as well. It's a very thick paperback, though. Very heavy. Okay, so next I'm going to read Psalm number 49 in our reading of the Psalms. So Psalm 49. Hear this, all ye people. Give ear, all ye inhabitants of the world, both low and high, rich and poor, together. My mouth shall speak of wisdom, and the meditation of my heart shall be of understanding. I will incline mine ear to a parable. I will open my dark saying upon the harp. Wherefore should I fear in the days of evil, when the iniquity of my heels shall compass me about? They that trust in their wealth and boast themselves in the multitude of their riches, none of them can by any means redeem his brother, nor give to God a ransom for him. For the redemption of their soul is precious, and it ceaseth forever, that he should still live forever and not see corruption. For he seeth that wise men die, likewise the fool and the brutish person perish, and leave their wealth to others. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. Nevertheless, man being in honor abideth not. He is like the beasts that perish. This their way is their folly, yet their posterity approve their sayings. Selah. Like sheep they are laid in the grave, death shall feed on them, and the upright shall have dominion over them in the morning, and their beauty shall consume in the grave from their dwelling. But God will redeem my soul from the power of the grave, for he shall receive me. Selah. Be not thou afraid when one is made rich, when the glory of his house is increased. For when he dieth, he shall carry nothing away. His glory shall not descend after him. Though while he lived, he blessed his soul, and men will praise thee when thou doest well to thyself. He shall go to the generation of his fathers, they shall never see light. Man that is in honor and understandeth not is like the beasts that perish. So basically all about you can't take it with you. And so if you're trusting in your wealth, you're going to end up in hell. You're not going to heaven, right? These people trusting in their own selves and their wealth. And they're saying the world approves of that, but they're not going to be able to take that with them. The only thing that is eternal is salvation. So if you are trusting in the Lord Jesus Christ for salvation, you will endure forever, and all the others shall perish, right? That's what it's basically saying there. So Psalm 49. Revelation. So now we're into Revelation chapter 12, continuing the Bible study by Crossways. So they have the next chapter called, if I would switch to that, Week 6, the cosmic conflict between Christ and Satan. Their weeks are very long, so we're basically cutting those weeks, down so that I can actually get through some of it. Can't get through all of it in 1 week. So we're going to cover Revelation 12 and possibly 13. We'll see how far we get. So Revelation 12. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven. So this is a parenthetical chapter now, because in Revelation 11, we saw the seventh trumpet and the two witnesses get raptured up, and God saying that he's taking over. The kingdoms of the world are become the kingdoms of our Lord. So the Lord's now reigning. So the seventh trumpet. So now we're backing up somewhat to Revelation 12. It's a parenthetical is what they call it. So it's not in the direct chronological order anymore. So now it's actually taking us back to the past here. So Revelation 12, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, times and half a time, from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth, and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So we have here the woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This is a reference to Genesis 37, so verse 9, where it is Jacob or Joseph. Was it Joseph dreamed a dream, right? So Joseph was dreaming his dream. It says, and he dreamed yet another dream, and told it to his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. So this imagery about the sun, the moon, and the stars, the 12 stars is the 12 patriarchs of Israel. So the 12, like Joseph and his brothers and sisters, I guess. So the 12 patriarchs of Israel is the 12 stars. The woman represents Israel, right? So that's, and the imagery is going back to Genesis 37, basically. So, and because we know this is Israel, the woman is Israel, because in verse 5, she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. That's Jesus Christ, right? It's clearly Jesus. So who was the mother of Jesus was from Israel, right? So the woman is Israel, right? Because that's who brought forth this man child. And it says that the woman is going to be protected by God in the wilderness for 1,203 score days. That's 3.5 years. Again, another 3.5 year time period there. And then you get the devil coming down. So, and the other thing was the dragon here, the great red dragon, has 7 heads and 10 horns. And that's significant because when we see to the beast in Revelation 13, that also has 7 heads and 10 horns. But the beast is from the sea, and the devil is from the bottomless pit, because there's this angel from the bottomless pit, and then there's this repeated 7 heads and 10 horns beast, and the dragon also. So basically, we're seeing like a duality here between Satan and the Antichrist. So it's sort of telling us that the dragon is basically in control of the Antichrist, right? So because they both have the same number of heads and horns with these heads and their horns, right? So yep. So there was war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. So the dragon gets cast out of heaven, and in verse 9 we know that the dragon is Satan, because it directly tells us that the dragon is that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. So he was cast down in the earth. So now it says he knows that his time is short, right? So he's cast down. So he's no longer, and when he accused us before the throne day and night, well, he's accusing people, but at the accusation, he's basically accusing them. Look, these people are not good people. They're sinning all the time. Right here, they're accusing them of their sins before God, but we overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony, because he paid all the price for those sins already. So the accusation doesn't stand against us anymore, because Jesus already paid that price. So Satan's accusations don't really mean anything against us. They don't count, right? So now he's cast out, and he says he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. Now we've seen in history that Israel has been, and the Jews have been, a persecuted people throughout history, culminating in World War II with the Holocaust. So there's definitely some imagery here that we can say could be referring to the Holocaust or other persecutions of the Jews over the years, right? And then, but even so, the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly into the wilderness, right? So that's how they get to the wilderness for the 3.5 years. So this 3.5 years is like the great tribulation, right? Because now Satan is coming down, and he's empowering the Antichrist. So that 3.5 year great tribulation period is what they're talking about. So we are going to see that there's going to be some Jews that are going to be protected by God. Now, I don't know if it's literally out in the wilderness, if they literally go in the wilderness, or if some of this is symbolic or not, because casting out of his mouth water as a flood might be symbolic, right? Not a literal flood, right? So we don't really know. But the earth, so they're being helped by the earth as well. And then, so we know that even this people that are going to the wilderness is Jews, right? Because it says he was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, right? The remnant of her seed would still be Jews, because the woman is Israel that brought forth Jesus. So there is a remnant of Israel which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ, right? So they are believers in Jesus, these Jews that are being protected in the wilderness. So there is a remnant of, like, they would be called Messianic Jews, right? That actually believe the right gospel. That remnant is going to be protected in the wilderness, according to Revelation 12. So now let me look at the notes that they have here. It says Revelation 12 is the pivot point of the book of Revelation. Chapters 1 to 11 have shown us the conflict that churches face within and without. False teachers from within and the Roman Empire from without. Now we get a clear view of the spiritual reality behind and beneath that conflict. Chapters 12 to 14 identify the main enemies of Christians: the devil, the beast from the sea, the beast from the earth, and Babylon. So we'll see the beast from the sea and the beast from the earth in chapter 13. Then in chapters 15 to 22, we see those enemies destroyed in reverse order: Babylon, the beasts, and finally Satan himself. The dominoes are set up and then toppled. The big picture, the pivotal section of Revelation shows the satanic opposition Christians face, but also reminds readers that through the work of Jesus, Satan has already been defeated because we overcame him with the blood of the Lamb, right? He's already been defeated, but he's still going to try. I see Revelation 12 as Israel. It's referring to Israel and how Israel is going to be protected during the tribulation period. Revelation 13 is how the mark of the beast is going, and how Christians are going to be persecuted in Revelation 13 when they refuse the mark of the beast, right? So, like Israel, they are Christian. These Messianic Jews are Christians, but yet the whole church is not being mentioned in chapter 12. So there is a distinction there. So there's still an Israel, and Paul had said God has not cast away his people, right, who he knew. So there's still a remnant of Israel that's going to be, saved, right? So, and Paul, in the letters of Paul, it says all Israel will be saved, right? So it's talking about that. And it also says in Zechariah that they're going to look on him whom they have pierced, and then they're going to basically repent and get saved when they realize that they rejected Jesus, right? So there's this remnant that's going to be protected, right? So then we have the three main characters in the opening vision of 12, 1 to 6. A woman in labor, a male child, and a great red dragon. Compare 12:1 with Joseph's dream in Genesis 37:9, which we did. So the woman symbolizes Israel because we know it brought forth the male child. Compare the description of the male child with the description of God's Messiah in Psalm 2, verse 9. So let's take a look at Psalm 2, verse 9, what they're talking about here. It says, "Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron, thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel." So it's saying he's going to rule with a rod of iron, right? So it's talking about that here in Revelation 12, this child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. The same Messiah that's in Psalm 2. Okay, so that's what they're getting at there. And we know who the male child is, Jesus, and the great red dragon. And we are told in verse 9 that it is Satan himself. Yeah, that old serpent. Okay. So in 12, 1 to 6, we see there's a conflict deeper than the one between God's people and Satan, namely the conflict between Satan and Christ. Satan seeks to destroy Jesus. According to Revelation 12:5, what is the outcome? Yeah, well, he's caught up to God. So he was trying to kill Jesus as soon as he was supposed to be born, like 2,000 years ago. And of course, the rulers at that time were trying to kill all of the newborns that came out around that time because they were trying to kill Jesus. That was Satan behind them trying to kill Jesus before he was born to try and stop God's plan. And he was not successful in doing so. So Matthew 2 16 to 18 it's talking about here. It says, Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men, because the wise men were going to visit Jesus when he was born. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, In Ramah there was a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted, because they are not. So, so Herod tried to kill. That's the whole. They tried to kill. They killed all these children just to get to one person, Jesus, right? And they did not get him, right? So Jesus won that conflict. Revelation 12:5 gives a broad brush overview of Jesus' victory over Satan, moving immediately from his birth to his resurrection and ascension to God's throne. So as we see, right away it says, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. But there's a big gap. There's a 33-year gap between the first part of the verse and the last part of the verse, right? So sometimes prophecies are like that, where you get the first half is one time period and the second half is a bit later. And prophecies often mix those time periods together sometimes. So it says in 7 to 12, we're granted another perspective on the conflict between Jesus and Satan, with more details filled in. The loud voice in verse 10 announces God's victory and Satan's defeat. With a loud voice, now has come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God. This is after the serpent is cast out. So it's basically saying, okay, after he's cast out, now is going to come the tribulation, and it's going to end with the kingdom coming to earth, right? So it's basically setting into sequence these events that are going to happen. So that loud voice, it's announcing God's victory and Satan's defeat. Satan is described as the accuser of our brothers, who accuses them day and night before our God. So Jesus' death, resurrection, and ascension defeat his accusations, because he paid the price for us, and there's no sin imputed to us after we're saved. All sin, past, present, and future, are paid for. There's nothing for the devil to accuse us of anymore. So Revelation 12:11 describes Christians who conquer the devil, even though he kills them. In what sense do believers conquer Satan? Do they look to the world like conquerors? Well, no, they don't. But they overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they love not their lives unto the death. Because once you're saved, you no longer have a fear of death. You're ready to go anytime it's whenever is the time, because you know you have eternal life. So that you've won the battle. You're never going to die. According to Jesus, whoever believes in him shall never die. Even though their body may die, you will never die. So that's how we're conquering Satan. It's already a done deal. Once you're saved, it cannot be changed, right? So how might 12 verse 12 encourage Christians suffering the fierce attacks of Satan? Does the dragon's anger show that he is winning or losing? How does 12:13 to 17 emphasize God's protection and care for his people? 12:12, right, because the devil has come down. He knows that he has a short time, so he has great wrath, right? So he's very angry because he keeps losing all the time, and that makes him more angrier every time. So he wants to just wipe out everyone. But now, the persecution of the woman is Israel, not Christians, what they're saying here, Christians, but it's mostly Israel that's being persecuted here, and the remnant of her seed, which are saved. They are Christians, but they're also Jews, right? They're Christian Jews, right, in the end of this chapter. So that's the end of chapter 12. Then we're going to 13 after that. So I think we're ready to go to Revelation 13, which now is in the next thing that happens after Satan gets cast down. So Revelation 13, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. That's Revelation 13. So again, we see the 7 heads and 10 horns of the beast from the sea. Satan has 7 heads and 10 horns. So because Satan gives the beast his power, so basically Satan, he's sort of the beast's proxy. He's like puppeteering him and possibly possessing him too. And he does have a different number of horns. As we saw, Satan had 7 crowns, or not different number of horns, but different number of crowns on those horns. 10 crowns. Now, the beast, the Antichrist, there is a 10-nation confederation that there's 10 kings that the Antichrist gives his power to for 1 hour with the beast. So that's the 10 crowns that's talking about. The 7 crowns on Satan's head are about there's like 7 major kingdoms of world history. And I think that's probably what the 7 horns are. If you count out all those kingdoms, you have Babylon, you have the Medes and the Persians, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, all the way up. Like you can count 7, I think, until you get to the current day, right? So, but we're going to look at that in more depth, I think, later, like next week or something, when we look at the evidence of who the Antichrist is, right? So in Revelation 13, we meet 2 agents of Satan's plans, the beast from the sea and the beast from the land. The beast from the land is also known as the false prophet. And we know that because there's different other. It doesn't say that in Revelation 13 that he's the false prophet. But how do we know he is? Because there's other references to the same person. So it says 16:13, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So there's the false prophet being mentioned. And in 19:20 and 20:10 as well. We'll just go to those. 19:20 says, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake, burning with brimstone. So this is the one verse that is, proof positive that the false prophet is the same beast from the earth, because it's mentioning the same things that beast did, right? So we have 20, verse 10, and the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. So it's eternal torment is where they're going to end up. But before that, they're rising in Revelation 13. Okay, so the beast from the sea may point ultimately toward an end-time individual, the Antichrist, or the man of lawlessness in 2 Thessalonians 2. So we also see a mention of the Antichrist in 2 Thessalonians 2. That's the other main passage where it says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, the rapture, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So we have the Antichrist is going to declare himself to be God. And that is the main sign that has to happen before the rapture can occur. So we have to see a rebuilt temple, and we have to, as we see in Revelation 11 at the beginning, it says measure the temple. Well, the temple is going to be rebuilt. Then the Antichrist is going to be ruling around that same time. So we need the temple to be rebuilt before he can sit in the temple and declare himself God, right? So there's certain things that still have to come, right? Within the next maybe couple of years, we're probably going to see these things. But there are also surely partial fulfillments represented by anti-Christian governments throughout this age. Note the multiple kingdoms represented by the 4 beasts from the sea in Daniel 7. Beasts that are similar to the beast in Revelation 13. So Daniel 7 has some beasts in it, and they do represent different kingdoms. So Daniel 7, there's 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld until the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. This is talking about Babylon, because that's what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. His power was, he was taken out of power. He was like given like the heart, like a beast's heart, because he went crazy, and then he was restored back. It was restored back to him afterwards. And behold, another beast, the second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and had 10 horns. So we have these beasts here. There's like, we've got Babylon. I think the bear would be like the Medes and the Persians. The leopard is like Greece. The iron beast is like the Roman Empire. These 4 main empires. I do believe. And then, so we go back to Revelation. Hold on. Okay. So basically they're saying that this beast is like the same kind of imagery you get in Daniel. It represents some sort of kingdom. So even more immediately in John's day, the beast symbolized the Roman Empire, and its recovery from a mortal wound symbolizes the wildly fluctuating fortunes of Rome in the period after Nero's death. So like there could be multiple fulfillments through history of these beasts, right? But there's only one final fulfillment, right? So there's some things that are going to be fulfilled partially by things that happened in the past, but then there's a final fulfillment that fulfills everything in the future still. So it says the second beast refers to the cult of the worship of the Roman emperor, since the false prophet is said to make the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast. The Roman Empire did that, right? So, but again, this beast also finds partial fulfillment in false religions, philosophies, and ideologies that arise throughout this present age. So if you look through history, you see some of these same things happening over and over again, because history does repeat itself to some extent. So the Roman Empire can be seen as a type of the final kingdom, which, in prophecy is often said it's a revived Roman Empire, right? Because it's basically the Roman Empire been brought back to life, basically. So that's what they're saying about 13. We're not going to look at 14 today. So let's see. I think they're going through. So then we have the 1260 days. Revelation 12:6 says the woman was nourished in the wilderness for 1260 days. And for a time, times, and half a times, which is 3.5 years. We've already seen in Revelation 11 that the temple is trampled for 42 months. Again, 3.5 years. And the two witnesses prophesy for 1260 days, 3.5 years. Why all these references to 3.5 years and 1260 days, 42 months? As with most symbols in Revelation, the answer is found in the Old Testament background. The phrase a time, times, and half a time comes from Daniel 7:25 and 12:7. So it's Daniel 7:25. Daniel and Revelation are very closely linked together. So Daniel 7:25 says, and he shall speak words against the Most High. This is talking about the Antichrist. And shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. That's 3.5 years. Again, and then we're going to look at chapter 12, verse 7. It says, and I heard the man clothed in linen, which is upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half, and when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Because they were asking him, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? So, because they told Daniel, seal up the book to the time of the end, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. So it's talking about the final tribulation period. It's going to be 3.5 years. So, and then there's this other period here. So the Antichrist sits in the temple and he stops the daily sacrifice in the temple. And from the time that the daily sacrifice with the abomination of desolation, right, when he sits in the temple, from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days. So there's two more time periods here, 1,335, 1335, and you've got also 1290. So the 1260 is that 3.5 year period. So we have an extra month here with the sacrifice after the abomination of desolation. And so there's going to be a period of an extra month there. So, and then there's this other one, which is 1335 days, which is another 45 days, another month and a half after that. So there's like 2.5 months after that 3.5 year period still that we really don't, this could be the extra 2.5 months that we may have to survive until Jesus returns. I'm not so sure about these different time periods they're saying there, but it's blessed is he that if you reach that 1335, that could be talking about that's when the rapture occurs, right? So it refers to a period of tribulation for God's people. In Revelation, this tribulation is understood to have begun already with the first coming of Jesus, lasting until, no, it's not understood that way. They understand it this way, this crossways, but I don't understand it that way. It's a future thing. They're saying it's already happened, right? But the wilderness of this world, therefore, has a dual character as a time of tribulation and testing, but also of divine provision. The woman in Revelation 12 flees to the wilderness because she is in danger, but she goes to a place prepared by God in which she is to be. So they're basically saying that the woman is the church, and it's been the church being persecuted throughout history is what it's talking about, but I don't see it that way. It's too specific to be able to apply that to history, I don't think. So then we have God's Son, the Messiah. Psalm 2 is one of the great messianic psalms in the Psalter. It speaks of God choosing David and his descendants as the royal house of Israel, and it calls the nations to receive the blessing God originally promised them through Israel. Through Abraham, all the nations of the world will be blessed. By submitting to David and his heirs, all nations who reject the rule of God and his anointed king will incur the wrath of God instead of the blessing that God would pour out on them through their submission. Psalm 2 is interpreted as a reference to Jesus in the New Testament, and it also stands behind Revelation 11, 18, and 12, verse 5. 11, 18. Let me take a look at that. So they're saying, the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, the time of the dead that they should be judged. And thou should give us reward unto their servants, the prophets, and to the saints. And okay, so what they're saying that Jesus, Psalm 2 is interpreted as, I don't know what they're saying here, but the message of the illusions is that Jesus is the true king who brings God's judgment and blessing to the world. So if we look at Psalm 2, we can see what it's actually about, because I don't know what they're talking about half the time. It says, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. The anointed here is Jesus, right? So he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath and vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. And ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron, thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings, be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. So the word, it's a call to getting saved instead of going against God. So put their trust in Jesus instead of trying to go against them, because up at the beginning of this psalm, they're trying to fight against God, and we do see this in Revelation. If we go to Revelation 20, after the millennium occurs. So if we go to Revelation 20, I'm in the wrong book, Genesis. We want Revelation 20. Okay, and then so after the first resurrection, the 1,000 years happens, right? And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Satan is not going to be ruling in hell. He's going to be tormented in hell. None of this ruling in hell for Satan. Okay, so this is the ultimate fulfillment of Psalm 2, because the nations are going against God. They come against Jerusalem, the beloved city, the camp of the saints and the beloved city. That's Jerusalem. So at that time, that's the saved people who are ruling and reigning with Jesus over the earth after this 1,000 years reign, right? So the 1,000 years reign of Christ has to happen first before we see the fulfillment of this. And notice it says Gog and Magog. Is that just randomly put there? What is Gog and Magog? What is it talking about? Is that just a random reference? No, it's not random. It's there for a purpose, because in Ezekiel, there is a direct prophecy about this war that occurs in Ezekiel 38. It says, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. So there's this whole big war of all these nations that come against God, and God destroys them. This is the prophecy that gets fulfilled in Revelation 20. Now, there's some people who think that this war takes place prior to the tribulation and not after the 1,000 years. But there's nothing in the Bible that places this battle, that requires this battle to be before the tribulation. But there is that evidence in Revelation 20 that requires it to happen after the 1,000 years are over. So this prophecy is of after the 1,000 years. I don't believe this can happen, because there's a lot of people that are being thrown off by this, thinking that this has to happen first before Jesus returns. And they're seeing like, okay, the U.S. is attacking Iran. Oh, this must be the Ezekiel war coming in. But then it's not, they're finding that it's not matching up against the prophecy exactly. So it's like they're saying, well, I don't know, we don't know. And then they're saying like, well, what if the U.S. wins the war and Iran is like decimated or whatever, or taken over? Well, what happens to this Ezekiel 38 war then? Because the whole premise of this war is that these people from Persia and all this are coming against Israel. Well, if they're no longer able to do that because they're being attacked or they're being taken over by the Antichrist, Trump, then what are they going to do? How are they going to do Ezekiel 38 before the tribulation? See how it falls apart, right? They're assuming that it takes place before the tribulation. All these prophecy scholars think that, right? But they're wrong. I believe they're wrong, because there's the only direct evidence for this Ezekiel 38 war to occur is in Revelation 20, because that's why it says Gog and Magog. Why else would it say that? It's telling you to go back and read Ezekiel, because that's where Gog and Magog shows up, right? If we do a search, this is on Magog, see what we get, right? Ezekiel 38, right? You get the genealogy of Magog here, which is in Chronicles and Genesis 10, but then you get Ezekiel 38, Ezekiel 39, which is a follow-up to that war, like the aftermath of the war. He's going to send a fire on Magog, which matches exactly what it says in Revelation 20. And then the only other reference to Magog is in Revelation 20. So where do you get this war happening any other time than Revelation 20? There's no other evidence, right? So this is where they go wrong. So there's some people out there who think certain things have to happen, but it's not based on the Bible. It's based on what they've heard from other prophecy teachers, right? They don't read it for themselves. So anyway, I think that's the end for today, because we're after 11. So we're going to continue next week I'm going to take a break from this study, and we're going to look at all of the evidence that I have on if Trump is the Antichrist, right? We're not saying 100% that he is. We're not accusing anybody here. We're just looking at the available evidence and seeing if he might be the Antichrist, right? Because we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket and then something happens and then it turns out we were wrong, and then everything goes back to normal, and then turns out we're not in the tribulation, right? But if things continue as they are continuing, we are seeing the evidence, right? So we're going to lay out the evidence next week. I have a whole presentation on this, and we're going to look at Daniel, because the book of Daniel has a lot of things listed out as to what the Antichrist needs to fulfill. And we're going to see if Trump fulfills any of those or not, right? So we'll take a look at it. So until then, like, subscribe, comment down below. Any questions, let me know, and I'll see if I can answer them. So until next week, we will see you next week. God bless.